What is up, guys? How are we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Jedi In Exile. I was going to say we've got an exciting one, but it's exciting for me, not so exciting for Brian. We are really getting into the business end of our movie reviews. So if you've not seen any of the other reviews in this series, then where have you been? Make sure that you hit the like, hit subscribe, and then go check out the other videos. They'll all conveniently be in a nice little playlist on our channel for you. But we have arrived at The Last Jedi today.
Yeah, strap yourselves in, guys. We didn't really want to do this, but obviously we have to. So,
Talk to
yeah,
me,
Last
talk to
Jedi
me,
time.
Brian. Tell me what you think. Here we go.
Yeah, right, I'll get my scroll out. Hold on. um, this film is a shambles. And this is actually a film that, because I know I'm going to get probably loads of comments fired back at me, this is one of the only reviews we've done where I've actually made copious notes to back up my opinion. So you're going to see my eyes constantly flick to the side because I've got my tablet
Hey, mate.
near me. This film is a shambles. And I feel like it's a shambles. It's really disjointed. I think it's not a very good bridge between Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of this film could have been expanded on and made into a good film, and a lot of this film could have been completely taken out and we wouldn't have lost anything on the story. So I think that's my first point of view. I think it's probably the worst of the sequel films, if not worst in the whole Skywalker saga.
Oh no, you didn't!
I know we've spoke about this before. So those are my initial thoughts. I think the film is a shambles, and I think the film is trying to be. I think all of the sequel films are trying to be the original trilogy, following that same kind of story arc, but with obviously a younger, newer generation. I think Last Jedi just doesn't really do itself justice. I think it's just poor writing. I mean, there's so many things that are wrong, which I know we're going to get into, but that's my initial thought. It's a shambles. Matthew, what about you?
Okay, here's me for some light relief now. No, I'm joking. I agree with you to an extent. I think, as kind of a initial thoughts, disjointed. Not necessarily. I'm not necessarily going to go as far as shambles, but disjointed. Both within the trilogy and within itself, disjointed. And we'll move on to dissect that a little bit more when you talk about some of your points, because I get the impression that a lot of your thoughts on this probably line up with my own. I think there's positives here. Let's not go out and out and say it's a horrendous movie, I'm never gonna watch it again, like any of that stuff. Like it's not dire, but I would agree it's probably the worst of the sequels, if not the worst, for the entire saga. We are going to cop a lot of hate for this video. There will be a lot of people out there that also agree with us. It's one of those things, like...
I mean, the sequels themselves, but definitely Last Jedi, they are very 50-50. I've seen people online say that it's their favourite Star Wars movie, it's their kids' favourite Star Wars movie. And yeah, there are some positives. And I will say that when I watched The Last Jedi a few days ago in preparation for this review show, I tried to watch it from the point of view of understanding like why Luke is the way he is, how that might have come about. And I did kind of think, well, actually I don't like it, but I can understand it a bit better, because I really did try and watch it from the point of view of, he's been through so much turmoil. You can understand why he's a hermit, why he's a recluse. I still can't understand how Rey is so powerful in the Force. With like zero training. One of my big gripes is the fact that Rey. Let me start again. One of my big gripes is the fact that Kylo can't overpower Rey in any of their battles. There's the famous scene where he's killed Snoke. Spoiler alert. And him and Rey obviously have that where Anakin's lightsaber splits in half, where they're using the Force. Well, how somebody who's been trained since the age of probably 2 or 3 through the Force is matched up against, Rey, who has used the Force for like a month, and they're equal in power. It makes a mockery of the whole Jedi Order from the prequels. I think I get that she's a Palpatine. I get that she's extremely powerful in the Force, but come on.
So I think ultimately that's I agree with you to an extent. Again, to an extent, I probably don't feel quite as
to an extent, Matthew.
I don't feel quite as strongly as you do. I think it's explained a little bit in the like Luke's very specific wording of raw strength, raw power. So it is supposed to show how much of a kind of outlier she is in regards to how connected to the Force she is. I agree with you that it's taken to a point where you're like, this is a little bit farcical. So that bit I do agree with, but I do think there is some basis there to build an argument of it to an extent, just not to enough of an extent that it makes sense within the movie, like you've said. So I am with
clearly
you.
it's exaggerated, isn't it? Her power, and I get, it leads, it leads into the storyline of Rey, doesn't it? So, I get it. I think that one thing I find weird about Rey in this film as well, she's constantly so upset about Han dying. She didn't even seem that close to him. It's just a little gripe that just annoys me.
I think the whole point is that
crying.
I think the whole point is that she idolized him, right? That's because
how the hell can you idolize somebody who you don't really know much about and you've never met?
She did know about him.
Yeah, no, I get that she knew about him because Han was like, "Oh, all the stories are true," but you don't get the impression that she did.
I think.
Well, I didn't get the impression that she did idolize him, so I get that argument, but I didn't get that.
But I think this is just another kind of block in the argument that it was disjointed between Force Awakens and this one, in that if that was the direction that it was going to go, that kind of point needed to be strengthened a little bit more. So you mentioned about the scene in the throne room.
Yeah.
So I quite enjoyed that scene. I quite enjoyed the fight. The fight I thought was choreographed really well. I enjoyed the kind of shock twist with the whole Ben, Kylo, however you want to refer to him. I guess he's Kylo at this point still. Will he turn, won't he turn again? And the whole killing Snoke, and you're like, oh, he's done that because he's turned, and actually it was just sending him even further down the dark side road because he was essentially seizing power for himself.
Yeah, I think one of the positives of Last Jedi is Kylo, and I think Adam Driver gives a really, really great account of himself playing Kylo Ren in these sequel trilogies. I like Kylo Ren. We get a lot of emotional vulnerability in this film with Kylo, in the sense that yes, he is, the baddie, he's the villain, but you see him almost want to come back to the light, but he probably is too far gone. Like, he won't shoot the bridge because he knows his mum's on there. He's still, Snoke says you've got too much of your father in you.
There's glimmers, right? Little glimpses of hope.
Yeah, and you obviously feel like the big moment with in the parallel kind of to Vader. Vader kills the Emperor and turns back to the light. You kind of feel like Kylo killing Snoke is going to turn him back to the light, but actually it just plunges him deeper to the dark side. And you're constantly thinking he's going to turn back to the light now. He's going to turn back to the light now, and he just doesn't. And so I do actually really like, because most villains, especially in Star Wars universe, they are just bad. Like, they've done really terrible things. I mean, Darth Vader, yeah, he turned back to the light, but he still killed thousands of people. and doesn't really show any vulnerability until kind of right at the end of Return of the Jedi. So it's refreshing to see this villain who owns up that he's got deficiencies.
This
But can we just admire, for the people watching on YouTube, we've got Ben Swolo.
I think this makes the movie worthwhile in
Yeah,
itself.
okay. My score has just gone up.
Yeah. Perfect 10 from me. No, but I agree with you massively in regards to this showed a really kind of complex character as opposed to and we saw it a tiny bit in Force Awakens. We touched on it in our Force Awakens review, right? The struggle, which is kind of the theme for the sequel trilogies for Kylo. But this really developed that more in that it dropped these kind of nuggets of, like you said, that hesitating to blow up the bridge because he knows that Leia's there and all of that kind of stuff. And it's character development that we haven't necessarily seen massively before. So I think that is a massive positive out of this, and it made Kylo Ren a really good character. He went from being in the Force Awakens pretty much just like a Vader knockoff. That was essentially how he was seen after Force Awakens, to being much more than that.
But I like how they do portray him as a Vader knockoff. Like Snoke says, you'll never live up to the, being Vader's grandson, and I think that's quite. I think that's clever. I think that's clever that they're working on that. He really wants to emulate Vader. I'll finish what you started, etc. I think it's really cool. So I do think Kylo Ren is one of the positives to come out of the sequels, but also this film. I think one character who I really don't like throughout the sequels is General Hux.
Mm-hmm.
He's just his pronunciation of words. He's like overly British, first of all, and that's coming obviously from a Brit. He's just, and again, I suppose I'm doing the same old thing, referring back to the originals. He's got nothing on the old Imperial officers. Like, he's so like over the top, but almost like a bumbling fool. So that again, he's just an annoying character for me. Obviously we know he's developed a bit later on in Rise of Skywalker. So
I really disliked. So if we're gonna draw comparisons to the original trilogy, Tarkin and Vader had like this rivalry, this kind of, but it was a professional rivalry. And I feel like and
Kylo was like schoolboy playground stuff.
This will come out more in the Rise of Skywalker, because there's certain things that happen in that just kind of accentuate this a little bit more. But this feels very like petty. It's very much just like I don't like him, so I'm gonna make him know that I don't like him, and it's
I'm gonna cut off my nose to spite my face kind of attitude.
Point scoring, kind of very immature rivalry as opposed to professional. So no, I'm with you on that one. I'll be honest, that opening scene with General Hux and Poe, when Poe comes to
it's quite funny. He destroys the hands, doesn't he?
I remember laughing at it the first time I saw it, and then on the second watch kind of going, it's a bit weird, and I'm not a huge fan of it. And then afterwards, actually going back to, do you know what? I do appreciate a little bit of kind of it didn't feel forced, which some of the humor in Force Awakens felt forced. It felt quite natural, and it kind of laid some foundations for Poe being a little bit more of a Joker than we necessarily saw him being in the Force Awakens.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind Poe as a character. I think he's a bit too Han Solo tryhard, and Disney have obviously tried to clone that kind of young rogue kind of thing. Yeah, I think that one character who, and we spoke about this on The Force Awakens, how they could have done so much more. I don't quite really like where Finn's character goes in this film. again, there was so much more that could have happened. We have the whole scenes where him and Rose are tracking down this master hacker, and so those are the scenes. When I talk about at the beginning of this review, I said there were scenes that could have been deleted. This whole story arc didn't need to be in the film, has kind of no relevance to the film.
It doesn't move the story on at all.
No, it doesn't. These two characters meet up because Finn's trying to escape, which again, I don't really feel like is his story. It's in his character. He's left the First Order because he's seen that they shoot civilians and his friends obviously died, and he's seen the light, if you will. He's then found the rebellion and actually got friends in the rebellion in Rey and Poe and Chewie. Why would he then just choose to save his own skin? I think it's so out of character.
Which, even out of... So, I could kind of see the argument for this if that had been the direction that he then went for the entire thing. But he has that moment of, I'm going to desert, I'm going to jump in an escape pod and go. And then almost immediately, it's, I'm thinking about Rey, and I want to make sure that she's okay. So it's like almost an immediate switch one way and then switch back, which is, I agree, seems very, very out of character.
And he doesn't show anything else in like Rise of Skywalker to that effect. He's like the leader of the resistance of, going to Exegol and, doing all of that. So, yeah, that was something. I don't really like the way they took Finn's character. Again, we spoke about it on Force Awakens. I feel like he had so much potential that I'm not saying the whole storyline needed to revolve around him, but there was so much more they could have explored with him. I think while we're talking about, characters not going anywhere, I hate that Admiral Akbar died and we get basically like no mention of it. Obviously, when the bridge gets shot at, everyone inside, gets sucked into the vacuum of space. So that's bye Akbar. That was quite sad. And then the whole Leia saving herself with the Force, I just thought was just weird.
So
there's no other way that I can kind of explain that. It's not bad for the story or anything. It just seems weird.
Do you know what
I suppose they needed to portray it because of the chaos that then ensued. Sorry, mate.
I'll be honest, and I know that people are going to point straight to the Force speed being used in Episode 1 and then literally never being referenced ever again. But I felt like this was, when the writing was being done, here is an opportunity to introduce something new to... And it was
using the Force.
It was Force pull, right? But it wasn't, because the whole point is everybody knows that in the vacuum of space you'd die.
Yeah.
So it was more than just Force pull, and then also introducing this whole Force. I don't even know what you want to call it. Of like astral projection, if that's what you want to call it, with Luke kind of appearing, somewhere that he wasn't, and then the introduction of the whole like dyads in the Force. Now the dyads in the Force thing, I didn't mind that as a concept. The whole like, Kylo and Rey essentially being like joined and all of that kind of stuff. I had no issue with that. It was the weird astral projection-y thing. I want to bring it back slightly. I totally agree with you about the whole Canto Bite portion of the story. That was my first criticism of it, having seen it on first watch. I just kind of went, I feel very much like they could pull that from the movie and the same things would happen. The only things that you would lose out on would be the scenes that ultimately you end up with them on the First Order ship, where they get captured and he obviously like fights Phasma and all of that kind of stuff.
Can I just say as well, did Phasma have a Beskar
spear
staff? Like,
I don't.
Awfully like the Mandalorian one.
Yeah, it does. I don't know.
I'll throw it out there.
And I don't know if
just so I can reference this maybe if Dave Filoni is watching.
We got you, Dave. We got you. Bring it.
Yeah.
But
no, I read something the other day, and it really got me thinking. And I was like, this is such a cool way of looking at it. So this whole dyads in the Force and the connection between Kylo and Rey. I saw somebody put on social media the other day that, because he didn't like The Last Jedi either, he said, I haven't watched it again. To make myself feel better, I've told myself that Kylo and Rey are the kind of reincarnation or the embodiment of the children of the Force from Clone Wars, from Mortis, the dark side and the light side, and that they kind of have to balance each other out. So one represents obviously the darkness and the dark side of the Force, one represents, you know, the light side, and all that's good in the world, and that because we know there's like 2 or 3 episodes in the Clone Wars series where the dad dies and Anakin is supposed to go as the chosen one to keep the, you know, the dark and light in order, keep it, you know, the balance of the Force, and he chooses not to, and then we know what happens from there. And I thought, you know what a great way, if that somehow turned out to be true, what a great way of doing it, because they are just the embodiment of that. And I read that the other day, and I've been thinking about it ever since.
It would explain a lot, right? Because it would explain why they have that connection. It would explain why she's so powerful. It would explain a lot of those things. Now, building on that, and I know we're getting slightly off topic, but we always do on these things. I saw a thing that was basically, it was very similar, but it was talking about how when Anakin was classed as the chosen one and that he was going to bring balance to the Force, the Jedi interpreted that as eradicating the Sith and eradicating the dark side, and actually, in order for things to be balanced, there will always be good and evil, and therefore he technically was the chosen one still, because
and I like how he said
Luke and Leia in, and that balanced the scales.
Yeah, because I think as well that when he says, and this again is getting a little bit off topic, but when he says to Rey in Rise of Skywalker, when she's in front of Palpatine, he says, "Bring balance to the Force, Rey, like I did." It's Hayden Christensen saying that, and I think, what's he referring to? Is he referring to killing the younglings and the Jedi? Or, you know, I joke. He's obviously not. He's talking about killing the Emperor, but killing the Emperor, in my eyes, doesn't bring the Force into balance, does it? Whereas killing all the Jedi, you know, does.
Which, here's 2 things for you. One is that how Palpatine survived, because he needed to, because Luke, who was this all-powerful Jedi, was still alive, so therefore needed something in the universe to balance that out. And 2, does that then also lead us into what happens after Rise of Skywalker, in that the dark side of the Force is no more? You've got Rey, who is the light side of the Force. There's a gap to now be filled.
Is Rey, because she goes on about not being a Jedi, she's like, you know, this, you know, they call it a Jedi, the grey Jedi. So maybe that is the balance. And I get the arguments of her being the chosen one, completely disagree, but I get the arguments because she kind of has brought balance by turning kind of away from the Jedi path and also destroying the Sith. So I kind of get those bits, but we're getting a little bit off topic. I mean, we can't move on without talking about Luke, and this is my main gripe with the entire sequel trilogy. So you can see the photo there of Luke giving, you know, a couple of days training to Rey and being quite a funny self. Yeah, I mean, where to begin? This, for me, Luke's been done so dirty in these films, of like seeing, you know, I get, and this is where I say I tried to see it from his point of view, in that after what's happened, you know, he's gone to be a recluse, a hermit, he's shut himself off from the Force because he thinks the Jedi have done wrong. Now, he understood after Return of the Jedi why the Jedi Order was destroyed, because it had become too self-serving, it had become arrogant, and the dark side was allowed to cloud their vision because they weren't forward-thinking enough. And in my eyes, if you know that, he basically repeated the same mistakes. So that's the first thing. He's repeated the same, and I think we're gonna obviously have that explored a little bit more with, you know, young Luke being in The Mandalorian, being in the Book of Boba Fett. I think we're gonna see a bit more of what happens. So That's my first bit. My second bit is that throughout the whole of the original trilogy, Darth Vader, who is one of the most villainous villains you'll ever find, doesn't look like there's a shred of light in him. He's killed thousands of people. He's the Emperor's right hand man. He's, feared across the galaxy. Luke is like, there is still good in him. I can turn him back. Yet Kylo, he senses the dark side in Kylo. Kylo has a bad dream, and Luke, and I know he doesn't, but Luke has the thoughts of killing him, killing his nephew. And I'm trying to understand that he doesn't want to see maybe Vader happen again, with the blood of Skywalker, that the line of Darth Vader. But even so, surely Luke Skywalker wouldn't want to do that to his nephew. And there'll be people out there who say, well, he didn't do it. He saw the light, if you will, and that was when Kylo turned around and obviously
Pulls the
threw all the
ceiling
stones
on him.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Kylo went and destroyed all the other Jedi. Why Kylo destroyed all the other Jedi, I don't know, but whatever. Obviously, that was Snoke, and I hope we see a little bit more of that explained or explored at some point. But it just, for Luke to then bugger off, and he spends the whole of the Last Jedi just telling Rey to go away, like an Attack of the Clones Anakin. He's just whiny, and it's really strange how he wouldn't have gone there with R2D2 or something. Like Chewie bursts in as well, one of his oldest pals, and just like, what are you doing here? Like, oh, what's happened to Han? Surely at that point he thinks, oh, Han's died, this is so big, I've got to go back. It really doesn't seem in his character, and it's a shame that they didn't use more of Luke in this storyline, of him training Rey, maybe doing an Obi-Wan against Vader and sacrificing himself to Kylo. I really struggle with it. Really, really struggle with it.
I think that's all valid points, mate. I'm not going to sit here and I normally play.
I get that people can change. I get that people can change, but people don't change their fundamental core,
Yeah.
of who they are.
Yeah.
They might change beliefs about things, but they do not change their fundamental core and their reason for living. And this is where I really compare canon Luke to Legends Luke. Legends Luke realized the Jedi were kind of this cult religion who didn't let anybody in, who thought they could do it all themselves. So he sets up a Jedi Council consisting of all different people from the universe, not just Jedi. The Supreme Chancellors on the Jedi Council, there's senators, there's other, representatives. He says that the Jedi actually should form attachments. So he allows, them to marry, have children, because he actually thinks that expands on the Jedi. So that for me is the Luke Skywalker who's like, right, why did the Jedi Order, or why did the Jedi become extinct? What led to that? We need to do the opposite, while still, promoting, peace and justice and all of that. And that makes sense to me.
So, on the kind of note of the whole trying to take the Jedi forward and all of that kind of stuff, this is where I then really struggled with the whole putting so much importance on the sacred texts and all of that kind of stuff. And when Yoda came back, I don't know if the original plan was just to have him as some light humor relief, or whether it was to try and kind of emphasize a point or whatever it was. But the really iconic thing with that is that Luke's crying about the texts being gone, and Yoda's like, have you read them? And he's like, no.
Clearly he would have read them. That's what, again, I find that a bit weird. And I think that, and I get it because of the logistics of it, the guy's dead. I feel like it would have been better if it was Obi-Wan talking to Luke. Weirdly, but, whatever. I know that couldn't happen, but yeah.
I think what I really want to avoid with this is kind of getting nitpicky, because we've given all of the other movies the same thing, is that we've nitpicked, but when we've nitpicked, that hasn't necessarily reflected in the scores, because we know that small individual issues are not necessarily what makes a bad movie.
Yeah.
But I think there are some fundamental issues with this, right? Talk to
And
me.
I don't think you can get away from it either.
Talk to me
It's
about Holdo. Talk to me about the whole Poe Holdo, somebody doing something. I thought there was
yeah,
actually quite a nice message in here. This is another thing that I would say is a positive.
yeah,
She frustrated me as a character on first watch,
yeah,
because I feel like I felt very much I was in Poe's headspace.
yeah. Of course you are, and that's the film's designed to have you think that way, isn't it? Like
But I feel
that
like
there's no plan.
I feel like there was genuinely a message here in the whole. You don't always see the bigger picture, and that other people might be in a better position. You know, sometimes you do need to trust in other people making decisions for the greater good, rather than focusing on, you know, individual aspects and going, this is completely wrong.
Yeah, I think I think it illustrated that sometimes people higher up in power have to make tough decisions. Um, I think people kicked off because she had pink/purple hair. We're like, oh, it's Disney, you know.
See an
Doing all
issue.
this.
I don't see an issue.
I know, but this is for me why they had to have something happen where Leia wasn't around, because Leia would have controlled Poe. Poe's not going to talk back to Leia. You know, I think they had to have something happen where Leia went into a coma, basically, and that there's chaos when Leia's not around. You know, the resistance is, you know, it's been basically all but destroyed. Um, I like that, you know, it's the sacrifice she makes. She turns, you know, the ship around, and I find it weird how the ship could go into hyperspace and destroy all the Star Destroyers, like basically in like a zigzag pattern. But whatever, it's Hollywood. Again, we're nitpicking, but I liked her as a character, and I think it illustrated as well how Poe is like. Leia is always thinking of the casualties of war, and obviously she makes several points talking to Holder about, you know, keep losing good people, whereas Poe is like, he's not thinking about the casualties, he's thinking about we can, you know, destroy a Star Destroyer. But Leia's like, well, there's probably 50 Star Destroyers in the fleet. Destroying one's going to make no difference. But if we lose 10 X-wings and 10 pilots, that's a lot to us.
So I'm gonna ask here. Question to you and to the comment section. Is this the first time within the Star Wars universe, because I can't think of any other, where we see a character genuinely put it upon themselves to fully just go full martyr, full sacrifice? There is no way I'm getting out of this alive, but it's to serve the greater good.
Rose's sister at the start of this film,
Okay.
but we don't really know her as a character. I'm just literally off the top of my head, that's the only thing that came into my head. But yeah, thinking about it,
Where it's like built up to be a big thing, there's no chance of kind of.
she saved the resistance, you know. So yeah, there is. Yeah, no, I don't think there is such a martyr in the whole saga. I can't think of another one. Somebody.
Comment section, let us know if we're wrong, but it's just an interesting thing to point out that it's another thing that's kind of been introduced as moving away. You know how these movies have been criticized for trying to repeat the original trilogy, something completely new introduced. Talk to me about like it leads nicely on. Talk to me about after this. Obviously, they escape down to Crate. Now, there's quite a lot of stuff to digest goes on Crate. There is kind of the weird
worst line of the entire saga of the we're not gonna win by fighting what we hate, we're gonna save what we love.
which let's again, without not wanting to get bogged down in details, let's not even talk about how it's physically impossible for her speeder to have knocked his speeder out of the way. But I digress. One thing that I really want to point out, and we were chatting about it just before we came on, and it'd be silly for me not to mention it here. How weird is the guy when they're in the trenches who just like gets some stuff on his finger off the ground and licks it and goes, "Oh yes, salt." Like, I don't think there's ever been a time in my life that I've gone, "I wonder what this thing on the ground is. Let me put my fingers in it and lick it just to find out." But in all seriousness, we get this weird. I'm really torn with this part of the movie, if I'm honest. It's fundamentally underlined by this weird force power, right? This like weird transfiguration, which we don't know is the case, but we know that something's up because he is using a lightsaber that we've seen's been destroyed.
Yeah, that was when I remember watching this in the cinema and thinking he's not real because he's not got his green lightsaber.
He's had a haircut.
Yeah, it looks fine.
He's had a shave, and he's got a little bit trimmer, like all within the space of like however long that's supposed to be. So we know something's a bit weird. The thing that I did like is, and you touched on it, obviously, he knows that Han's dead. And we get the really poignant moment where he gives the dice to Leia. That was quite emotional. So for me, that's a massive positive from this thing. But I still can't get away from the whole how it's all built up, and I don't know, and I'm kind of going with this here, but where we talked about in The Force Awakens, they set the precedent of the legends of like the Jedi and how everything must have genuinely been thought of as like a myth because Han comes in and is like it's all true. The whole like Luke Skywalker facing down an entire army like single-handedly, like obviously that's going to go down as a folk tale for the rest of history within the lore of Star Wars. But I just found the whole thing quite strange. But I think it also built on the kind of pettiness of Kylo and the hatred. And maybe again I'm spitballing slightly, but maybe we needed to see this, and maybe we needed Luke to die in order for Kylo to come back, because he was so absorbed by and obsessed with his hate for Luke. So maybe actually we don't give it enough credit for this, what this actually.
Yeah, no, I think the whole Luke kind of, I suppose, sacrificing himself to save the Resistance. I get that. That's in Luke's character. That's a real Jedi thing to do. I thought the Force projection, they could have played it in the sense that there was something in these sacred texts, some kind of knowledge that he's found to be able to project himself somewhere. Which, with the line previously, obviously he hasn't really read the text cover to cover.
But what I really would have loved for in that case, and this is again, I know it's being nitpicky, it's not going to reflect in my score, but just as a way to get round that, is within cinema, how many times do you see something done where like the camera pans, so when the texts were burning, the book falls open, and on the page that they're on, it's got something that hints at that as a power, to then it explains it without explaining it. And I feel like something like that would have just brought a little bit more weight to what we see. It's like they've just kind of gone, oh yeah, by the way, while he was there, he learned how to do this. Because the other thing for me is, like, he's supposed to have cut himself off from the Force the whole time he's been there. So he's obviously not been practicing it.
No, I feel like there isn't obviously a way of explaining this. This is something that probably would be explained in a book or a novelization or a comic or something. I feel like the reason why we probably don't know much of that about this Force projection is because it can kill you if it goes wrong, which obviously it doesn't go wrong with Luke, but he becomes so exhausted that he dies. And I think it's a real sad end for, in a sense, you know, the Grand Master of the Jedi. I think it's just a really sad end for him. That he sacrificed himself and he's done it so the Resistance can escape and fight another day. I don't know. It's just What more can I say?
No, that's I think it's been said. Let's roll it round. So the final point I want to make before we get into scores is, and it's going to be similar to my kind of summary of The Force Awakens, is I feel like there were good things here, good things that could have been built on, and fundamentally it was let down by the disjointedness of where it sits in the trilogy and where it sits within itself, like that whole Canto Bight bit being taken out. The one positive to come out of the Canto Bight scene is that we get this at the very end of the movie. So this, I think a lot of people interpreted it as it shows, which is that it's a kid who they were like, well, he's obviously force sensitive because you see the tiny little snippet of him using the force to pull the broom. But I feel like this was the whole kind of
the ring with the Jedi emblem on, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's the resistance ring, isn't it, that she gives to him. But this, for me, I felt really excited walking out of the cinema having seen this, because I was at the point where I was like, they're going to rebuild the Jedi Order. This is hinting at the fact that there are still force-sensitive people out there. Like, this is where they're going to go with the franchise, is that there is a platform here to build from. And that's what this message was to me, is there are force-sensitive kids out there. Let's do something with that. Yeah. And the thing that fundamentally then goes against my scoring for this is that nothing was done with this at all, and it reinforces the disjointedness that we talked about. Thought this was really good, really clever, great way to end a movie, and as I said, walked out of the cinema feeling really hopeful, really, for what was to come, and then nothing. So that's all I wanted to say on that. I don't know if you've got thoughts. If not, we'll move straight on to scoring.
No, I kind of agree. I mean, I didn't really. This was a film that when I walked out of the cinema after watching Force Awakens, I was excited, and I was happy that we had Star Wars back. I genuinely did walk out of Last Jedi thinking, "What the hell was that?"
We went and saw it together, didn't we?
And not so much in of like "Oh, that was shit." I was just really confused. Like,
we went and saw
what
it.
was that?
We went and saw it together.
Oh yeah, of course we did. Yeah.
And I remember us walking out, and you just kind of going, "Don't really know how I feel about that." It was, and it obviously it wasn't those words, but it was that was the sentiment.
I haven't actually really changed on a lot of the Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. Kind of changed my opinion for good or for bad from watching it more and more times. And don't get me wrong, I watched the sequel trilogy with my little boy, because those are the Star Wars films that I suppose he's been raised on, but we do watch them. He's got Kylo Ren's lightsaber. He's got the Kylo Ren costume. So Kylo Ren is kind of a character he knows. So I've watched The Last Jedi a lot of times, and I still cannot change my mind on anything. So my score, moving on to the scoring section, I really debated this, and I feel like after we've spoke about it more today, I need to give it a 3 out of 10, and I was hovering around a 4 or 5. I can't give it a 5, and I feel like I can't give it a 4, so I'm going to give it a 3, because it doesn't join Force Awakens to Rise of Skywalker. I just don't like it,
and that's fine, mate. The thing that I'm going to say to protect you from the comment section slightly is that you've just said, yes, I don't like it. That's not why you've scored it a 3.
No. I
You've
don't
not.
like it for the reasons I've given, and the reasons I've given make it a 3 out of 10, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know that there will be a lot of people that like the Last Jedi, and that's absolutely fine. What I've likened it before, that thing I read about Star Wars is like a restaurant. You don't like everything on the menu. Pick and choose the bits you like. Don't have a go at the people who like ordering something else. I'm okay with people liking the sequel trilogy. I personally don't like them. There's that.
So I'll go in not quite so harshly as you, but still low scored. I'd give it a 5.
Ooh,
I think.
you're nice to me.
I think there are positives here. There are some good things in this. It's not a movie that I go, oh my god, I'm never going to watch that again. It's not a movie. There are fundamental issues with this film for me, and I'm gonna caveat that for me, things that I will not get past, and that's probably me being stubborn. It's me not being open-minded, and there will be people out there that criticize me for that. Fine. I agree with you about Luke's fundamental kind of philosophy, ideology, just kind of doing this weird U-turn. There's the weird astral projection that I said I thought could be better, but the one sticking point for me is that we get 40 minutes, if it's that. I don't know exactly how long it is, but that would be my guess, of this Canto Bight storyline that does nothing. It does absolutely nothing to. But shall I tell you the one purpose that it serves? The one purpose it serves is world building for the movies, in that we see that the world's slightly corrupt, and Benicio del Toro's character, the master hacker guy, makes a comment about, where do you think the rebellion are getting their weapons, right? So I understand that was in there to try and kind of send a message, prove a point, teach a lesson, however you want to frame it. Didn't need 40 minutes to do that. Is where I'm at with it. It didn't serve a purpose. So you've given it 3. I've given it 5. We knew it was going to score poorly, but again, we're not.
It's the first film we've given under 5 or under, though.
We're not necessarily right, guys. If you completely disagree with us, let us know in the comments down below. The one thing that I would say is, these are our opinions. I feel like we have genuinely justified where we're coming from. It's not just that we walked out of a movie and went, I didn't like that, I'm going to score it badly.
Yeah.
And we've given it a chance. Those opinions may change in future, they may not. Let us know down below in the comments if you think we've got it completely wrong. Let us know if you think we're right, if you agree with us, and you think that we scored it too well. Because there will be people out there that probably think that. So let us know down in the comments below. As always, if you don't want to miss any of our content, then please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all of that good stuff. And we will be wrapping the series up in the next review video, with our review of Rise of Skywalker. So keep your eyes peeled for that one, and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss it. And other than that, all that is left to say is we will see you guys real soon in the next one.
Peace out. May the Force be with you.